with honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Andrew Doyle, and in a moment it'll be time for Headliners, where I'll be taking you through Wednesday's newspapers with the help of two of the best comedians in the country. That might have been a bit of hyperbole, but they're very good. But before that, it's time for the news headlines with Polly.
Andrew, thank you. Good evening. In an extraordinary development tonight, the Home Secretary says she's disappointed that a planned deportation flight to Rwanda was not able to leave due to European court intervention. But, she says, preparation for the next flight begins now. The first flight was scheduled to take off this evening, carrying around 130 asylum seekers. That was reduced to 6 during various legal challenges, but now the flight has been cancelled completely. Priti Patel says the Home Office legal team are reviewing every decision made, but the government would not be deterred from doing the right thing. Well, earlier on, Boris Johnson was asked if it was time to come out of the European Convention on Human Rights in order to see through government policy.
The legal world is very good at picking up ways of trying to stop the government from upholding what we think is a sensible law. Will it be necessary to change some laws to help us as we go along? It may very well be, and all these options are under constant review.
Well, in other news tonight, the Department for Work and Pensions says 8 million households will receive the first part of their cost of living payment on July the 14th. A £326 instalment will be paid into the bank accounts of low-income households on benefits. The second portion of the £650 payment will follow in the autumn. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, says the money will protect those who are paying the highest price for rising inflation. Scotland's First Minister says there's an indisputable mandate now for a second referendum on Scotland's independence from the United Kingdom. Speaking in Edinburgh, Nicola Sturgeon said it would allow for a wealthier, fairer and more resilient nation, adding people in her country were suffering from many implications of a Brexit they did not vote for. Scotland previously held a referendum in 2014 on the issue, with 55% of the country voting against independence. But Ms Sturgeon says the country is more prepared now than it was then. The Foreign Secretary says the EU has absolutely no reason to retaliate against government plans to override the Northern Ireland Protocol. It's threatened legal action if the changes go ahead. Ireland's Foreign Affairs Minister, Simon Coveney, warned it could destabilise peace in Northern Ireland. But the government claims the new rules will simply make it easier for goods to travel there from Great Britain. In London tonight, several hundred people have taken part in a silent walk to mark the 5th anniversary of the Grenfell Tower fire. It comes after the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge joined survivors and bereaved relatives, laying a floral tribute to the 72 people who lost their lives in the blaze. Earlier today, the names of all the victims were read out at a memorial service at Westminster Abbey, and a 72-second silence was also observed at a shopping centre in West London. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Headliners.
Thank you, Polly. And welcome to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle, and joining me tonight I have the comedians Leo Kearse and Diane Spencer. How are you both? Leo, you've been in the gym. You've been working out.
We've got a free gym here.
We do.
As a Scotsman, I want to get my money's worth.
Is that what it's about? It's less about the health, more about being thrifty.
Yeah, it's actually a clash of Scottish things, because I want my money's worth from the free gym, but also I don't want to be healthy.
Yeah, it is a cultural clash there. Diane, have you been making use of our facilities?
I haven't been to the gym yet. I'm more of like yoga, namaste.
Yes.
Like, I like a comfy room with like some incense.
Yeah, you like spiritual health.
I really
Which matters
do.
more.
Yeah.
I mean, you die younger, but you're more
Glass
fulfilled.
of white wine.
Absolutely.
Sit, meditate.
Well, let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages before we delve inside of them. And we start with the Daily Mail, and the Daily Mail leads with Euro Court grounds jet to Rwanda. This is the first Rwanda asylum flight, which was grounded last night after a dramatic intervention by the European Court of Human Rights. We're obviously going to be getting onto that in just one moment. And this is dominating all of the papers. We move on to the Telegraph now. We have Rwanda deportation blocked by European judges, and inevitably onto the Guardian, and they have the same there. European ruling throws Rwanda plan into chaos. Onto the Financial Times now. Coinbase to cut almost a fifth of staff as crypto crunch worsens. I have to be honest, my knowledge of cryptocurrency is as poor as ever, but maybe my panel will be able to enlighten me. And onto the Daily Express. Fury as Rwanda flight blocked. And then again onto the Metro, and they're running with the same. They're going with Rwanda air farce. So they've attempted a kind of pun there. So at least they're doing something a bit original there. And then we're moving on to the Daily Star. And of course, as ever, bucking the trend. They're not interested in the Rwanda story. They're interested in ice creams. We've got 99 problems. And one of them, apparently, is that Cadbury's are warning of a chocolate flake shortage. I'm surprised that's not on all of the front covers. Very important news there. We'll be getting to that in a moment. Those were your front covers. We're going to kick off with Wednesday's Daily Telegraph, giving another update on the week's biggest story, I think. And this is dominating all of the papers. Who's got this? Is it Diane?
Oh, it's actually me. So the European Court of Human Rights has essentially grounded the very first Rwanda flight.
Yes.
So it seems that no flights can leave the UK, whether you want to go to Malaga or Rwanda. Nobody's going anywhere. So they've grounded this despite the fact that the Supreme Court, the High Court and the Court of Appeal have ruled in favour of the government.
Yes.
But the thing is that we are signatories to the European Court of Human Rights.
Yes.
And they've gone, nah, you can't take this off. We think it might be illegal, your policy, because Rwanda's not signed up to our thing.
Yes.
So we're not sure that you can do this.
Well, they've cited safety concerns as well, haven't they, about some of the refugees going to Rwanda. And I'm not quite sure what they mean by that. They're suggesting that the conditions might not be ideal.
For a moment, I genuinely thought you meant the flight. I genuinely thought you meant there's no cabin crew, so how on earth are we going to...
The legroom is appalling.
It's not Ryanair, so...
No, so it's OK. So, Leo, now this is an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously we are signatories to the European Court of Human Rights, well, to the Convention, which the court interprets the law of the Convention. It's not to do with the EU. I think a lot of people get confused with this and the European Court of Justice, which we are no longer subject to, but the European Court of Human Rights, we very much are. But isn't this going to inflame tensions in terms of... Yesterday, our High Court said, no, this is legal. A court in Strasbourg saying no.
Yeah, considering Brexit was all about us taking back our sovereignty and our ability to make our own decisions, for the EU to step in after this has been tried and tested in various courts, in our highest courts in the UK, and overrule us and say, oh, no, you can't do that.
It's not the EU. This is the point. It's not the EU.
Yeah, but it sounds like the EU.
It sounds like the
European in the
EU.
name.
Yeah.
It's European in the name, Andrew.
We signed up to the European Court of Human Rights. It predates the EU. It was the Council of Europe in 1950. Predates the Treaty of Rome by 7 years. So this is not the EU. This is something different. But for you, it's not enough.
For me, it sounds very European. It's got European in the title. And I thought we left, and I thought we went through all that pain and all that hassle to have some sovereignty and to have some, to be able to make our own decisions. And it's, it's so hypocritical because the EU, I know this isn't the EU, but the EU in 2019 funded sending refugees to Rwanda. So it's fine for them to do it.
No, the EU has not got a great track record.
But as soon as somebody who doesn't smell of garlic does it, oh my God, everybody's up in arms.
I think the EU has a terrible track record on migration, and it was paying Libyan warlords to keep people in camps. It's not, if you're pro-migration, then the EU is not your friend.
Which is another great idea that we should look into.
For goodness sake, Leo. Well, let's move away from Leo's xenophobia on this and go to you, Diane. So are you because he's more worried about the fact that it sounds a bit European to me, but you're more concerned with the asylum seekers, presumably.
Well, yes, of course. I mean, they've already been through quite a lot.
Yeah.
And
France,
I
including
think
France and a lot of other very safe countries.
Yes. Now, you have got to look at it from that perspective.
Okay,
and what does bother me, actually, is this kind of flurry of legal help. Like, these lawyers have just magically appeared out of nowhere and suddenly come to their rescue. And I do get a whiff here of a bit of saviour syndrome from the lawyers.
Yeah.
And that they are jumping on somebody who is in the news. But there are a lot of people who are in trouble in the UK through no fault of their own as well, who do require legal help and haven't got the funds to put it together.
So it's so difficult, isn't it? Because it often feels like we're talking about different issues and we're moving away from the plight of the asylum seekers themselves.
Yeah.
They're caught at the centre of all of this. But we're talking about, firstly, we're talking a bit about democracy, whether, it should be our government that is enacting our laws and not these lawyers and Prince Charles getting involved, the Archbishop of Canterbury. It should be what the government wants. And similarly today, we're now talking about a conflict between our government and a court in Strasbourg.
Yeah.
But shouldn't we remember that we're dealing with human beings here?
Yeah, I mean, we are dealing with human beings, and it is, it's terrible that, people can't make a life for themselves in Syria or wherever they're coming from. But the idea that they're asylum seekers is kind of ridiculous, given that they're coming from France, which is a safe country, which you can claim asylum in, and there's many other countries that they can come from.
They are asylum seekers, though, because one of the passengers was actually tortured, according to the evidence.
But we know that the asylum system is being gamed by economic migrants who want to come here to make a better life for themselves, which I can't blame them for wanting to do. And it would be great if we could do it, and if we could just open the borders and have everybody come into the country who wants to come into the country. But we can't, because we've got a limited amount of space and a limited amount of resources, and there'd be the social and cultural conflict and upheaval that we'd be storing up problems. We've already seen with the Western liberal democracy is being sort of curdled and turned on itself. We've got mobs deciding what films can be shown in cinemas. We've got terrorism. We've got grooming gangs. Female genital mutilation. These aren't things.
But none of this is to do with these people, these particular individuals.
It's not to do with these particular individuals, but I mean, it's not like we wouldn't have these things if we had firmer borders, and it would be great to let people.
Well, I think a lot of people are suggesting that this is a bit of a fudge anyway. The whole Rwanda policy suggests a failure on behalf of the French government and the UK government to deal with the problems that we have with people trafficking.
But Rwanda's a fantastic solution. Rwanda's a fantastic country, much better weather than the UK, much better economic growth prospects than the UK. So if you're a single man, which these people are single men who, we're not throwing, women and children anywhere. They're going to be able to make a fantastic life for themselves in Rwanda.
OK, we have to move on now. Wednesday's Times next. It looks like Nicola is getting one step ahead of herself. Leo, I imagine you're going to have a few things to say about Nicola Sturgeon. I've heard you talk about it before. Is it fair to say you're not her #1 fan?
I'm not a massive fan of Nicola Sturgeon, so she's still banging the drum for independence. She wants another independence referendum, even though it's supposed to be a once-in-a-generation thing. And when was it, 2014?
How small is this generation?
And I know. Well, this is why. Health outcomes for Scottish people, the life expectancy is dropping so far that pretty soon 7 years will be a generation.
Fair enough.
So
that's probably what she means.
Maybe that's why she's trying to get us to all die so young. But yeah, so she wants another independence referendum and is banging the drum for that. She says there's a huge case for it. She's had to admit that there's going to be issues around. I mean, because obviously the money, we're not going to be able to use, in Scotland, we won't be able to use pounds anymore. We'll have to have Scottish pfennigs or the euro. So that's going to cause, huge problems with trade with the rest of the UK.
Trade like you used to in the Highlander. You could trade with cattle. Isn't that what people like William Wallace did? What do you
How many cattle can you fit in your wallet?
Well, that's a very good point. This is my knowledge of Scotland, by the way, coming through. Diane, what do you think about this? Are you a fan of Nicola Sturgeon?
I'm not a fan of what she's trying to do.
Do you want to keep the union together?
I do want to keep the union together. And what I object to is that she seems to sort of throw everything across at England and go, bro, we don't want to be a part of you. And it's like, mate, you can't even take the rubbish out in Glasgow. You can't even organise the clean-up of your own cities. Glasgow looked a state in that climate.
They do,
and it looks even worse now.
They have issues with high levels of drug use. I know you've talked about that on the programme before.
And it's like, why don't you get your house in order? And also, what I think is amazing is that there would have to be a border between Scotland and England because you would have to have border checks.
Yeah, this is something that Nicola Sturgeon has admitted. She's saying there will have to be a hard border, even though on the Andrew Marr show before she was saying no. She was sort of implying that wouldn't be the case. With all that's happening with Northern Ireland, the Northern Ireland Protocol, you would have thought that the implementation of a hard border between England and Scotland wouldn't this be a disaster for everyone?
If you're going through Stranraer on a truck, which is a trade route from England through Scotland, Stranraer to Northern Ireland to Ireland,
I've done that.
You're going to go through several different border checks and several different currencies on that trip. It's ridiculous. It's unworkable. Scotland does, I think, 66% of its trade with the rest of the UK. This would completely destroy the Scottish economy.
Which way do you think it would go, Diane?
Well, I really... What if they had a referendum like tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oof, I'm hoping that actually because of all the Northern Ireland stuff, I'm hoping that enough people would go, we don't want a hard border, and I'm hoping that. But I don't always get what I want when votes come around.
OK, so Wednesday's independent now, and it looks like more bad news for crypto fans, Diane. I have to be honest, Diane, I'm not knowledgeable about this. I hope that you know more than I do about cryptocurrency.
I do love cryptocurrency, and this has been happening for a while, and I've got the Coinbase app, and I am not surprised they're having to sack some of their staff.
What is Coinbase?
OK, so Coinbase is one of the many platforms that you can use to trade cryptocurrencies.
Right.
Now, over the past couple of months, there has been a massive sort of crash, essentially, in Bitcoin, which is the major cryptocurrency that everybody knows about. And there's lots of smaller ones, like Ethereum, that's also taken a tumble. And even in El Salvador, they've now put out the message, don't panic, because El Salvador has taken Bitcoin as legal tender. They also have the dollar, but they have Bitcoin as well, and you have to actually trade in Bitcoin. And considering the value is massively plummeting. Now, it's plummeting because we have worldwide recession, cost of living crunches and things like this, and it all has an impact on cryptocurrency because cryptocurrency is often backed by thin air.
Well, that's it. It's not real. It's not there.
Yeah, but neither's fiat currency.
Isn't it?
So, no, I mean, it's just a bit of paper.
But
it's just a number on a bank screen.
At least I can pick it out of my wallet and wave it in people's faces if I'm feeling flush.
Yeah, light a cigar with it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's essentially, it's just people's faith in it that keeps it
alive. It's how many people invest into it. It is a very unregulated industry. So you must be warned if you are thinking of putting money into a cryptocurrency, it is unregulated. You are literally gambling and just only put in what you can lose.
And it's all over the place. It really plummeted recently, didn't it? And everyone was really surprised by this.
Yes. So Coinbase, which is one of the platforms, they help you buy cryptocurrency. They are having to sack 18% of their staff, and they warn of a crypto winter.
Oh, I just bring back gold and silver and...
They never went away.
Cattle.
Cattle, I'm all about the cattle. It makes it more fun. Anyway, Wednesday's Mail now. There seems to be some problems in the NHS. Leo?
Yes, there's been an undercover BBC investigation which has shone a light. Why is that funny?
It's funny to me because it's like, aren't BBC journalists why have they all got second jobs? Do they not get paid enough?
I think this is part of their job.
Oh, right.
What have they come up with, these dastardly BBC investigators?
So there's a big chain of GP practices which are I guess kind of privatised.
Yeah.
Not that I want to cast aspersions on privatisation in the NHS, but Operose Health, which runs 70 NHS surgeries across England, is accused of pursuing various cut price methods. They hire cut price doctors. These
What's a cut price doctor?
So these physician associates who are paid like so in like legal profession or whatever, you get associates and you get juniors and stuff like that. So it's effectively that. So instead of a doctor who costs 100 grand a year, you get this physician associate who costs 24 grand a year, but doesn't really know anything.
This is terrifying.
There's a difference in trade. It's like, all right, darling, instead of somebody who's gone to medical school for a decade, I can do somebody who's got a couple of A-levels and 2 diplomas.
So it's the Del Boy of medicine. I mean, we're looking at... So basically, this is someone who can be... I'm quite good at arms, but I can't do anything to do with the stomach. You know, is it that sort of ropey?
Basically, from this, they just skim read stuff and they Google. They Google.
That is what it says. So you know when you phone that helpline,
Sorry,
the NHS
it's
helpline.
not funny. It's really
not
bad.
funny.
Sorry.
But is it just someone on the other end of a computer Googling the symptoms? Because I could do that myself.
Yeah.
No.
Except they're less invested in your health than you are.
Yeah, exactly.
So they don't get as paranoid and they spend less time doing it, which is...
By the way, it is the worst thing you can do is to Google your own symptoms.
Oh,
because the internet will take you to the worst possible scenario all of the time. You're always dying, basically, even if you've got a cough.
Can I tell you, I'm laughing because I just find it such an appalling thing that I can only laugh at it as a reaction.
I mean, it is incredible, isn't it?
I'm so utterly shocked.
I don't know, this just sounds like they've recreated the NHS in the private sector.
But well, it is actually an NHS surgery, but it's been sort of farmed out to this company, and this company are running it so badly. I just can't
like the NHS.
So wait, is this when people talk about the privatisation of the NHS by stealth? They're talking about this kind of thing, outsourcing various contracts to these sorts of companies. I mean, what is the other interesting aspect about this article is it's talking about this thing called social prescribing, and they're saying that this is something that is a radical approach to healthcare. Basically, it's when the doctor doesn't really know what they're doing, so they say, "Why don't you take a walk? why do you do some housework in a robust way and work up a sweat?" That's basically what it is, isn't it?
Well, to be fair, there are some conditions. OK, let's take, for example, obesity. There are some conditions, like obesity, and the doctor might say to you, right, have you tried exercise? Have you done this, that? And the person will be like, well, no. And the doctor might say, well, OK, well, you know, I'm going to prescribe for you to go walking and gardening 4 times a week.
Well, Diane, sounds to me like you're fat-shaming, suggesting that being overweight is a medical condition. But there we go. The tweets are going to come in now. Wednesday's Guardian. And has the government fallen out of love with electric cars? Was it ever in love with electric cars, Diane?
Oh, horridly so.
Oh.
And so the government has pulled the plug on its remaining UK electric car subsidies. Now, what this means in real terms is that it, for people on a lower income to be able to afford electric car, that is now getting even further out of your reach, which is obviously a major problem because we have the government and penalising us. You have congestion charges. Now motorists are really under attack because we're paying so much money for fuel at the moment. It's ridiculous. But they're going to put this money into infrastructure because we don't have the infrastructure currently to support the amount of electric cars that the government wants to get on the road.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought they were saying they were cutting subsidies for electric cars. We're not going to get the PowerPoints for the electric cars now.
No, we're going to get the PowerPoints, but it's now going to become way more expensive to actually buy the electric car in the first place.
But that's the way it should be, because, I mean, up until now, if you wanted to get an electric car, if you want a Tesla, you're generally not going to be, you know, some guy who works in the sewers or whatever, or, you know, a bus driver.
You're going to be pretty posh, right?
You're going to be quite rich. You're going to be well off. But we've got this taxpayer-funded subsidy on these posh toys for rich ponces. And so cleaners and bus drivers are being taxed to pay for the follies of the rich. It's ridiculous.
Your socialist side is coming out now, Leo.
Sums up this country. Well, yeah.
I really like that. Let's see if we can get Leo to have a left-wing rant in the next part. Anyway, coming up after the break, insults that could land you in prison, the town that is fighting back against second homes, and is Glastonbury Festival too white? See you in a minute.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle. Still with me are comedians Leo Kearse and Diane Spencer. Wednesday's Mail now, and it looks like climate change is also affecting the way we behave. Leo, how can this be the case?
Yes, so researchers from the University of Cambridge have analysed previous studies and found a link between extreme weather and sexual assaults, physical abuse against women and girls, and sexual and gender minorities.
That's a strange connection, isn't it? Why would that be the case?
Well, they say the correlation between these events is driven by factors such as economic shock, social instability, enabling environments, and stress. I don't really understand the enabling environments unless, maybe chaos or something could...
What do they mean here?
Well, like, for example, if there's a hurricane and it ploughs through a town and then suddenly your house has been ripped to shreds and the water system's been damaged and there's disease and everything, then there could be... That's an enabling environment where now everybody's vulnerable. People haven't got anywhere to live. And so...
Oh, and there's less oversight, social oversight, and police oversight.
Yeah, the police aren't there, they're dealing with other things.
Isn't what they're really talking about here, though, poverty? I mean, effectively, we know that rates of violence, domestic violence, sexual assault, and just general communal tensions goes up when people are poorer. And if you've got these natural disasters that are coming about because of climate change, I mean, look, I'm not an expert. I'm just saying that would seem to be the obvious correlation here.
No, I can totally see what you're saying, because there were some examples in the article where people were saying that they were marrying their children, their daughters off young, even younger than they wanted to, because of flooding. Because when the floods came in, they went, well, now everybody is wrecked because of the flooding, so the dowry...
float away on the wedding cake.
Yeah, so, like, yes, your wedding cake floated away with most of the catering and the other things you wanted me to pay for. Yeah, so the wedding would cost less, so people would rush to marry their daughters off, and...
No way.
Yeah.
That's mad.
Pretty bad.
I mean, I think there's a lot of tenuous connections. I haven't looked at the data behind this, but when researchers look for something, they tend to find it if they want to find it.
So you think this might be confirmation bias? You think this might be a kind of...
Possibly, yes. I mean, the researchers from the University of Cambridge, they're going to be super woke, they're going to be super anti-climate change, they're going to be... I mean, the fact that they're talking about, gender minorities and things like that, that's just...
Does Leo have a point, Diane?
He could, but for example, after Hurricane Katrina, I think we all heard it, where they were saying, oh, it's because of the gay people. The gay people have angered God, and he has sent Hurricane Katrina to New Orleans.
Yeah, not many people said that, to be fair. I think
no,
that wasn't a mainstream
But
view.
that's the kind of... That is one of the examples that they're talking about.
That's what I mean. I think that's where you might have a point, Lo. Insofar that was an extreme position adopted by various mad evangelical preachers. Let's be honest.
Yes.
But this is like a more rigorous scientific study, which is trying to draw a connection between minorities and something that affects everyone.
Yeah, but when you're dealing with data that's looking, there's so many other factors that could influence this.
Yeah.
And there's so much there can be bias when you're picking data to look at.
Well,
having worked as in data analytics myself for the police,
Sure.
when we were analysing projects, we'd never find a project that failed. We'd pick the data to make sure it succeeded.
I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions onto this area, but this is why I come back to the poverty thing, because so often when people focus on identity politics, they forget about class. They forget about money, and often that's the thing, well, as far as I'm concerned, that mostly causes a lack of privilege. Anyway, let's move on now to The Guardian. And it's not just the music that lacks diversity at Glastonbury, apparently the people as well, Diane, according to one comedian.
Yes, so Lenny Henry, I thought he was a sir. Yes, he is.
Sir Lenny Henry. He is absolutely a sir.
Well, The Guardian needs to fix that. They missed off his first sir.
They're racist.
So Sir Lenny Henry said he is, quote, always surprised, end quote, by lack of black and Asian faces at Glastonbury. So that's interesting. I mean, Lenny, sir, I don't want to be rude, but I am from the southwest. I'm clearly white, and I've never been to Glastonbury Festival. I don't know why you're trying to force people to go to a festival they possibly aren't interested in. I mean, I have been to other festivals where I have been sort of one of a minority of white people. I think it just depends on which festival you want to go to.
It might come back to what I was saying earlier about poverty and people prioritising, issues of gender, race and sexuality over poverty, because ethnic minority people are disproportionately represented in lower income brackets, and Glastonbury is really expensive.
Oh, Glastonbury's so expensive.
It's for posh people. So what he's really complaining about, I think, is there's too many poshos.
No, I disagree. I think you're drawing your own... you've got your own confirmation bias there.
Is that right?
Glastonbury is systemically racist, and they've booked racist acts to perform, such as Jeremy Corbyn, who was found to be clinically racist.
He was found to be clinically racist?
Yeah, definitively anti-Semitic and clinically racist by a Labour Party. The Labour Party investigated him and kicked him out of the party for being
clinically...
I've never heard of clinically
No, I mean,
whatever the phrase is, definitely racist.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about those sort of allegations, we probably should be clear on our language.
Jeremy Corbyn is welcome to sue me.
Right. Well, what I would say, though, is I know you were being satirical, but I believe that Glastonbury is for posh people. I was never able to...
glamping.
It's glamping.
This is where the phrase glamping came, because suddenly everybody, they all turn up and they've got their tents, and that's why Glastonbury is such a mess. And it's actually a major pain for the locals.
Yeah.
Because people turn up and they're very rich and they leave all their kit there and just wander off.
Oh, it's terrible. But isn't there also the issue here? Like, Lenny Henry now is noticing and so almost sort of counting the number of faces of different ethnicities. Haven't we reached a point where we have re-racialised society to such a point that this is the thing we notice now? And that feels to me like a massive step backwards.
It is a step backwards. And what about proportions?
Yeah.
Because what proportion of the UK is black and Asian? And, if suddenly, this is what I mean. Also, this festival... Lenny, don't force people to go watch music they don't want to see.
Absolutely. I mean, if you've left the jungle camp in Calais, the last thing you're going to want to see is it recreated by middle-class people at Glastonbury.
I don't think he was suggesting that asylum seekers should be going to the festival, was he? I don't believe that's what he was suggesting at all. I think he was just saying, look, I can't see any... I mean, look, he noticed that and he said it, and that's fine. I don't have an objection to that, but it just feels like a weird take, to be honest. Anyway, it reminds me of when Jon Snow said, talked about... He went to that Brexit... rally in London and said that he'd never seen a place that was more white. Well, try going to Glastonbury. Anyway, Wednesday's Telegraph. And it looks like you might be facing a lengthy prison sentence in Japan, Leo, because you do insult people online. I've seen it.
Not in Japan, though. Not anymore.
That's true.
I mean,
You love Japanese people. You leave them well alone.
Yeah, so Japan has made insults punishable by up to a year in prison under a new cyberbullying law. So this was brought in. There were calls to toughen up laws around online discourse following a reality star who's only 22 years old, and he died by suicide 2 years ago after becoming the target of a torrent of online abuse. There was a social media pylon, and he ended up killing himself. Herself. Sorry. I assumed it was a man because they're usually men. But an online, now they've brought through this legislation, and an online insult is mild as calling someone an idiot, which happens to me a lot on Twitter and worse things.
All of your trolls could go to prison. All
of my trolls. So in Japan,
in Japan. I mean, this is interesting, isn't it? Because, the impact of online abuse can be severe. We're not sort of psychologically in a position where we are accustomed to mass pile-ons. It is incredibly damaging. But we do have the block facility precisely for that, to keep idiots at bay. I've just called them idiots, so am I now? you know what I mean? So I just think, part of free speech has got to be that people can insult, and part of that freedom is that you can choose not to listen to those people, surely.
Yes, I also think that what's quite interesting is that this person, she was a reality show star.
Right.
Now, reality show stars do actually have a correlation with depression because they're not people who have worked at becoming somebody in an industry. They're somebody who's gone from literally their everyday life and they're suddenly catapulted into the entertainment industry, and they're not used to what it entails. Like, we all started with just mild Twitter insults, just one or two little Twitter insults, just the odd heckler. Now we've built up, hundreds of insults online.
I know. I don't feel like I've had a good day unless I'm abused routinely.
Have you done anything unless you're abused?
No,
You've
exactly.
probably done
It's a sign
nothing.
of success. Bring it on. Anyway, we're going to move on now to Wednesday's Independent. And one town is fighting back against the invasion of second home owners, Diana. This is Whitby, right? Whitby.
Whitby is for life, not just for summer. So what's happening is that there are too many second homes in Whitby, and by November, it's a ghost town. So the residents have held a non-legally binding referendum run by the
You're obsessed with Whitney Houston.
The Whitby Community Network, and they have voted overwhelmingly, like 90%, which is amazing.
Yes.
Have voted to say, no, we need to make sure that the people who buy a home in Whitby want to stay here. They want to become part of our town, because obviously, if you just create these sort of seaside towns, when everybody leaves, you do have that ghost town effect.
Sure. But you see, the trouble is, Whitby is a tourist attraction. Whitby is where Count Dracula arrives in the novel, when he's shipped over in his crate to keep out of the sunlight. It's in the novel. That's why people now go to Whitby. And apparently Bram Stoker was inspired by Whitby. It's a lovely place. I've been.
And now these second homes are sucking the lifeblood out of it.
Very clever, very clever. Are you a fan of Whitby?
I've been to Whitby.
Yeah?
It was quite nice.
It is quite nice, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's the flip side. Tourism brings a lot of investment, a lot of money.
Yep.
Maybe some fresh DNA. So you shouldn't just throw that out.
They need that in Whitby. What are you implying? There's an incest issue. Is that what you're saying? Outrageous. Right, let's move on to Wednesday's Mirror with a lovely story about a school assembly now, Leo.
Yes,
what's it about?
The UK's first openly gay state school head teacher came out to pupils yesterday by introducing his husband during a special assembly. So Colin Scott, 54, was applauded after encouraging the 512 students at the school to be whoever you want to be during the assembly dedicated to Pride Month at Rysedale School in North Yorkshire. Not sure how far that is from Whitby. But that's good. That's an example of a good, heartwarming sort of story.
Yeah, if they'd have booed him, this would have been a different story, but kind of funny.
He's lucky he didn't do it in Hungary.
Yeah. But this is an interesting... For a start, I'm very surprised that this is the first openly gay head of a school. That does actually surprise me.
The Premier League got there first. I can't believe
mad,
it.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Diane, is this a good thing? Should teachers be announcing their sexuality on stage or in the classroom?
I am split on this.
OK.
Because on one hand, I do like the way it was done, because the head teacher and his husband were joined also by North Yorkshire Police's LGBTQ representative and Lieutenant Colonel Jim Turner, an openly gay commander at Catterick Garrison. So it was like, well, look, these are also people who work and they are also for LGBT rights. But but, and this is the line for me.
You don't like them.
They cause floods.
They cause floods in America.
But my issue is, like, I don't know about you, but when I went to school, like, the idea of my head teacher, like, my head teacher was a Ms, and that was her business, that she was a Ms. And, like, at no point did she go, this is why I am a Ms. Like, it just seems weird. It's just that line of bringing your personal life into the school. I get it. But at the same time, I'm like, why did that need to happen? I don't know.
My feeling about that is, you know, I think this is quite an elaborate way to do it. As in, you have the gay police officer there. You do a big statement saying, I'm gay, and this means that you should be who you are, and I'm going to use this as a basis of a moral lesson for the assembly. Whereas actually, whenever I've seen this kind of thing before, whenever teachers or head teachers, they often mention their sexuality. You know, the head would say, at the weekend I was on holiday with my wife and we went to this place, and bang, there you've done it. So you've mentioned that you're heterosexual without saying that you're heterosexual.
Yes.
And in a way, I kind of feel it's more powerful from a gay student's perspective if that was the way that teachers talked about it. If in the natural course of conversation, you weren't self-censoring. You mention if it came up, you would mention a partner. Then why not? That would be more.
It's like monitoring the faces at Glastonbury to see how many white ones and how many black ones. It should just be something that doesn't really matter.
And when you make it about that issue, you know, you can imagine if as a gay pupil in that audience, you'll be thinking, oh no, you'll be blushing, you'll be like, oh no, everyone will know.
Yeah, and you don't want to be like, oh, because then, like, if you'd be like to your gay mate, so you want to go hang out with your. Are you going to go hang out in the staff room now? Like, no.
The positive thing, the fact that he is openly gay now does suggest that we have moved on, right?
Yeah, which is
because when I was
great.
at school, no one would ever be out. The very idea was preposterous, you know, and now loads of people are out. And it's just not an issue. But because it's not an issue, that's why I feel like you shouldn't have to make a big announcement about it. That's my feeling about it. People will say it's internalised homophobia, but
they love
whatever.
A song and dance.
Coming up, will humans be replaced by robots? Can magic mushrooms curb our fear of death? And is London slang going to be the dominant British dialect? I really hope not. See you in 2 minutes.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere. We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to the final part of Headliners. I'm still Andrew Doyle, and still with me are the comedy legends Leo Kearse and Diane Spencer. Legends, that was a bit much, wasn't it? But, you know, I'm trying to be friendly. Wednesday's Guardian, and it looks like this author may have turned her book into a reality. Now, this story we covered because the trial was on for the other week, and now we have the sentence. This is insane, right?
Yeah, it's a little nuts. So How to Murder Your Husband writer gets life in prison for, drumroll please, husband's murder.
So she wrote a book about the crime she was eventually to commit.
I believe she wrote an essay online. Yes, it was an online essay called How... She is a self-published romance novelist, so I'm guessing that the ISBN people have never got involved with the back of her book.
OK, I see.
Does that make sense?
Even so, if you are the sort of person who would plan to murder your husband, committing it to... But was that the idea? Was it almost like a trick? Like, in court, you could say, well, I obviously didn't do it because I wrote a book called How to Murder Your Husband. I wouldn't be that stupid.
I'm worried.
Is that it?
Well, I'm worried it was along the same lines as when somebody says they are researching porn for a book.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I was researching and it went wrong.
But is it maybe more like James Bond? You know in James Bond where the villain always outlines his plot and his scheme? Is it like that, Leo?
Possibly. I mean, OJ did it retrospectively, if that's the right word. He wrote a book called How, or If I Did It, or How I Did It. But after, like 10 years after.
As far as I'm aware, he's never admitted to.
But the title of the book, the F, was very, very small, and then it was like.
OK, I'll have to take your word for that, Leo. I will Google it.
Genuinely not making it up. Also, Jeremy Corbyn was kicked out of the Labour Party for racism. But yeah, this one.
You're not going to let that go, are you?
This particular. I mean, she doesn't sound like the sharpest tool in the box. So she didn't do much to cover her trails. They found internet searches for how to kill people and how to create a gun.
But she was researching for her book.
Oh, maybe that's the cover.
That's the trick here.
Well, it didn't work because she got caught. But she bought a handgun at a gun show.
So there's something about this, isn't there? The way that some people sort of channel their darkest elements into their literature, into their art. I mean, I do think about, do you know the novelist Anne Perry? She was a New Zealand novelist who was a very successful crime novelist, and a lot of them were adapted for the BBC. But then she was outed in the 90s as being a murderer. She'd actually bludgeoned her friend's mother to death with a brick back in the day. The reason it came out is because Peter Jackson made a film called Heavenly Creatures about that story. Right, and it's a true story. But no one connected that this famous novelist was one of the murderers. And then it all blew up. And you just kind of think, it's interesting, because her novels are all about murder and about death and about revenge, and you think, OK. So this is...
artists always seem to put their crimes quite at the forefront of their work. I mean, if you listen to Louis C.K.'s material, you would not be surprised. You would not be surprised.
But of course artists are going to draw on what their inspiration, who they are, and it will come out. But by the same token, we shouldn't look to artists' work to interpret their lives.
No, definitely
I don't think Stephen King is a vampire or has rabid dogs in the house.
Well, this woman is now working on a new book called How to Break Out of Jail.
Well, good luck to her.
Yeah, that goes.
Actually, no, she's a murderer. Wednesday's Telegraph. And after 27 years, it's time to stop exploring, since most of the internet has been discovered. Leo, is that right?
Yeah, sad news for middle-aged people like me who came of age in the internet times. So Microsoft has axed Internet Explorer after, guess how many years? 27 years.
Oh, I feel so old now. That's ridiculous. It was the new thing.
It was the new fast one.
Yeah.
It was then Chrome came along, and it's definitely the fast one now. But Microsoft has got Edge.
And there's
now,
Firefox.
Which is another new Chrome one.
That's mad.
But yeah, basically, there was Netscape in the old days. And
I remember Netscape, and it had the sort of the symbol with the sort of stars falling.
Yeah.
You see how old we are? We're ancient.
Yeah.
We're primitive.
And then Internet Explorer came along, and it was really cool and fast and stuff.
Yeah, but now it's defunct.
And now it's defunct. But yeah, 27 years.
Well, you know what? I can't talk. I've still got a Hotmail account, for goodness sake.
But can I just say, for those listening, it will end on June 15th.
Right.
OK? Dad, write this down. June 15th, you've got to use the one I showed you with the fox on it. All right?
It's very much a boomer story, this one. Anyway, so we're going to move on now to Wednesday's Daily Star. This one could be the plot of a low-budget sci-fi film, Diane. What's this one about?
Well, OK, so this is in the Daily Star, and the Astronomer Royal says humanity will be replaced by AI robots, and aliens already are. Now, I was very excited when I read Astronomer Royal. I was like, oh, my God, it makes total sense, because the Queen is a Taurus and Prince Charles is a Scorpio. And what will happen when he ascends the throne? We're going to be thrown into chaos. But no, it's nothing about that. It's something to do with, looking at the space. So basically he's saying that because we're ever evolving and we're slowly replacing parts of ourselves with, Google Glass, or, you've got the diabetic sort of things that can tell you what your blood sugar is. This gentleman, Lord Rees, told the Cheltenham Science Festival, Lenny Henry was there, by the way, counting people.
Yeah.
He told the Cheltenham Science Festival that we will gradually turn ourselves into robotic creations of ourselves, with this online living. And he's saying that because aliens are advanced, they've probably already done it to themselves.
So there's two things here, isn't there? So there's the first thing is this idea of AI, artificial intelligence, the idea that robots are becoming sentient. And we had a story the other day on Headliners about this, because at Google, there was a researcher who claimed that one of his robots is alive and talks about how lonely it is and how it doesn't want to die and all of this sort of stuff.
Andrew wants
But then is it...
I was terrified by this.
Andrew's going to kill it.
Is it just giving a sort of simulacrum of what consciousness is?
That's what I hope. But then the other issue about this particular story is about what they call transhumanism, right?
Yes.
Which is where we start implanting our brains with things that enable us to think at the speed of light and all the rest of it. And I just think, don't turn us into cyborgs.
Yeah.
Don't train the robots to become like us, because they will replace us. I keep warning about this. I feel like a New Testament prophet. But we have to be very careful about this, Leo. Am I not right?
Well, I think it's going to happen at some point. So you can't be the Luddite, smashing up the looms.
I will be smashing up those looms as much as I like.
I want a robot exoskeleton. I just don't think we'll ever be able to transfer ourselves into you can't transfer a consciousness. You can recreate.
Not at the moment.
You can recreate a consciousness, but then what about the consciousness you've left behind? It's a different.
You lack the imagination. If you were transhuman, if you had something implanted in your brain, you could envisage the dangers. I can. I know what's going to happen. We're all doomed.
Is that what that wire is?
Exactly what it is. Right, we're moving on now. Wednesday's Daily Mail, and we all know at least one person who is too loud and shouty, don't we, Leo?
Yeah, so an Arabic... Oh, what? Oh, is that a... Oh.
Hey, I didn't say anything, Leo. That's your paranoia.
Oh, my God.
Assuming that I'm talking about you.
Well, I hope the viewers back up my case for racial discrimination. So an Arabic-speaking journalist has sued the BBC for racial discrimination after he was disciplined for being too loud and shouty. So he's had his case thrown out by a tribunal, unfortunately, and he appealed, and that was thrown out as well. But looking at the details of the case, it sounds like he had a case. He
did.
Yeah.
He's
in his 50s. He's of Algerian origin. He's said to have upset colleagues at the BBC World Service when he spoke violently after being asked to address a July 2019 meeting in formal Arabic rather than Algerian Arabic. So, apparently it's more Bedouin and it's more guttural, like Scots compared to English.
Because people think that you're aggressive just because of your voice, right? But that's just your culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. People thought that about my mother when I was, the sound. No, I'm not being rude, but the Northern Irish accent can sound a bit aggressive sometimes.
Yeah.
But also, if you are somebody who gesticulates a lot, so if there's a lot of sort of the way you talk and the way you do this, like that...
I'm going to lose an eye here.
Yeah, exactly. See, Leo's already terrified because he's used to me sort of...
So we need to basically have some sensitivity to cultural difference. I mean, when I was a teacher, there was a German boy, and all the kids hated him. And the reason they hated him is they thought he was rude, because the way that he spoke English was the way that he speaks German, which means he's very direct. He wouldn't say, "Could you please close the door?" He'd say, "Close the door now." Immediately, like in this clipped way, and they thought he was being rude, and he wasn't.
Right.
So I think we just have to be aware,
because in England, particularly in Britain, but in England particularly, people are so passive and they apologise without
all the time.
You can really confuse an English person by saying, "I accept your apology."
Yeah.
You stand on their foot in the tube or something, and they're like, "Oh, sorry." You're like, "Oh, I accept your apology." And they're like, "What are you talking about?"
We just apologise on instinct, don't we? About absolutely everything. As we should. It's a shameful nation. Anyway, sticking with the Mail, and it looks like magic mushrooms is what we need to stop thinking about our inevitable and impending doom. Diane.
Well, so could magic mushrooms in care homes help curb fear of death?
Interesting.
So Dr. David Luke has said he is an authority on the science of such drugs. And he said that a giraffe sat on a pyramid told him that these drugs can reduce the fear of death.
Right.
Yes, he was speaking at the Cheltenham Science Festival. Lenny Henry was there counting people. And they've discovered that there's this thing called psilocybin, which is found in magic mushrooms. And you see, when you take them, they sort of put your brain on another plane and you start to sort of have this different experience. And so it means that people who are depressed and they feel trapped inside their bodies because perhaps they are ill, perhaps they have cancer or something, after they've had this experience, they come away a lot more optimistic because they say, no, there's something else out there.
So there's no great revelation here in a way. Like if you're unwell and depressed, that you might divert your attention into drugs or alcohol or whatever it is. But you're saying this has a lingering effect that has a kind of engenders a kind of optimism in life.
Oh, yes.
Towards the end of life. What do you think?
This has psilocybin and magic mushrooms have been proven to be incredibly good for depression and also things like PTSD and recovering from emotional abuse and things like that.
But they're illegal, right?
They're technically illegal, but doctors in the UK, I know a doctor who's got a license to prescribe it in
what's
trials.
the number? Okay, so this could actually have medicinal. Much the same way that cannabis used to be is legal for medicinal reasons.
Yeah, and I think this is it's going to be huge. A lot of drugs do have pharmaceutical benefits that are now illegal. And in the 60s, because people were worried about them being used recreationally, they just made a sort of blanket illegality of them. But now they're starting to look at it and look at LSD, DMT, magic mushrooms, and other things that are in my glove compartment.
Fair enough. Well, let's move on to Wednesday's Mirror now. And this is, this is a horrible story, really, about this operation that went wrong. Diane, you've got the details on this, haven't you?
Oh, gosh, yes, this is deeply sad. So a boy who is 4 years old was given an accidental vasectomy during routine surgery. So the family are, of course, suing the hospital. This happened at the Texas Children's Hospital in Houston. Essentially, the doctor wrongly identified. He was supposed to cut into the boy to deal with a hernia.
So it's a hernia operation, and they've ended up giving him a vasectomy.
Yes,
that's a major malpractice.
It's huge, absolutely huge, and they cut the boy's vas deferens tube, and it could affect the boy for the rest of his life. But thankfully, they're suing, and they've got an attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just horrible. Little more to say on that one, really.
Yeah.
Wednesday's Mail. Who can say wagwan? Wagwan. Apparently, phrases like wagwan, and that's what it says in the article, will become normal. So street slang will become the norm. We'll all be saying words like that, which feels like cultural appropriation.
So this is another. I mean, these people call themselves experts and researchers, but this is. University of Oxford linguistics lecturer says that within 100 years, the street slang that we hear in London is going to become the dominant dialect in Britain. But in 100 years, that's a huge amount of time. I think this, dialects change on whims.
Yes.
And, it could...
How do they know? How can they predict that this particular... Why not West Country? Why not Scots? Why not, how do they know that it's going to be phrases like waste man?
Well, the thing is, because this is seen as cool by young people, so
they want to use
it.
Cool.
You do get a lot of, young suburban white kids who use this, words like waste man.
What is a waste man?
Yaldim.
Oh, it's a stupid person.
Is it?
However, I feel that with the internet, it is far more likely that as people sort of go towards the fluid social groups that they want to be a part of, like, for example, people who love K-pop or people who gravitate towards American culture, I've heard English people use American words and American phrases.
Yes.
I think it's less likely to be this
It'll be K-pop.
Yeah, we could all be K-pop talking
Why not?
fans.
Why not? Well, we've got time just for one
We're all going to be talking Chinese.
Story. There again. OK, so this is a story about, this is an odd one. This is about a KFC.
Oh, damn.
A drunk dad of 6 with a samurai sword turned up at KFC at 1 a.m. to buy his kids a meal. If that's not great parenting, I'm so glad this story came out before Father's Day, because this just shows
Why did he bring the sword? Why did he bring a samurai sword?
Because his partner had chucked all his stuff out of the house. And you take your crap with you.
He drunk 6 pints of Stella as well.
6 pints of Stella, a samurai sword. This is a beautiful British story, isn't it?
This guy's an inspiration.
It's heartwarming. We've got to end there, Leo. Frankly, I don't think we can top it. So that's all we've got time for. Anyway, thank you to my guests, Leo and Diane. Please do join us tomorrow for Headliners at 11 o'clock, where we'll go through the next day's papers. See you then. Bye.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis and live debate that you need to hear.
quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in